So you ready to do this, JT?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to your Bedroom Super Producer Podcast. We are your hosts. My name is JT.
And I'm BK.
This podcast is brought to you by the good folks at delicatebeats.com, where we strive to help budding beat makers and music producers get on with their music careers. And today we have a special episode because we are going to talk. Actually, we talked about a lot of the GOATs in the game, haven't we, BK?
Yes, we have. But this week we have another one of those special producers that has made his mark on the music business. Who are we talking about this week, JT?
We are talking about this mysterious Swedish guy by the name of Max Martin.
Oh, yes, Max Martin, the man behind many pop hits since the mid-90s.
I think he's actually the most successful, quote-unquote, unknown figure in the music business.
I think so. I think he has the record for like the most Billboard number ones.
Well, so according to my research, he's either co-written or co-produced 73 US top 10 single hits.
Wow.
For the likes of Taylor Swift, Ariana Grande, Katy Perry, Britney Spears, the Backstreet Boys.
Of course, the Backstreet Boys, which he pretty much that's what put him on the map, I think, back in 1995.
Absolutely. And that's one of the key things with Max Martin is the fact that he's been relevant in this pop game for over, I'd say, 30 years now.
Indeed.
And just to give you guys an idea of just how prolific this hitmaker is, on top of those 73 US top 10 single hits, 22 of those actually went number one. So remember when we talked about the Neptunes a few episodes back? These guys had, I think it was 27 or 28 top 10 hits. And I could not tell you right now how many of those went number one, but I doubt that it's more than 25% of those. So he's literally like 3 to 4 times more prolific when it comes to hit making than the Neptunes, that is.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Actually, I think since they're overlapping in this history of music, I think he had a bit of a rut when the Neptunes came in to pick that little hole that he has in his career. I think he had like many hits until like 90, 99 or something, and then Neptunes, Pharrell and something, and he didn't have as many, and then came back on the scene a little bit later, but that's we'll talk about this later.
Yeah, so why don't you let us know a bit of his background, BK, for listeners out there who have no idea who Max Martin is.
Well, Max Martin is a Swedish-born producer, singer / songwriter, born in 1971. Pretty much comes from a rock and roll, pop, we can say pop, glam style, like we can say kind of like what Kiss was doing back in the day. So he came up with that. Did a lot of rock and roll, I think. Was in a band from 1985 till 1995. I think they were even signed on a label. And I think that was when in 1994, 1995, when things didn't quite work out for his band and for the whole rock thing he was doing. That's when he met his collaborator, Dennis Pop, a Swedish DJ producers at Sharon Studios. That's where he started working out as an engineer, started co-writing things, and that's when in 1995 they had the contract to write songs for the Backstreet Boys, and that's when everything started.
Actually, I think that once he got signed to Dennis Pop's label, they actually started to write songs together, and that's the first project that Max Martin was put to use, if you will, was for the biggest Ace of Base album,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
but that was a little bit before Backstreet Boys, no?
Yeah, exactly. So that's when Martin actually got his first taste of hit making, international hit making, even.
Yeah.
The Sign being the first song I actually heard that was a Max Martin produced song.
But The Sign, didn't he work on like the second album or something, I think? No?
Well, I'd have to research real quick, but
But he
as
did
far
work
as I
with Ace of
know,
Base. I remember he worked with Ace of Base.
so it was actually produced by Dennis Pop, obviously. And so Martin is not credited per se. From what I could tell, he had worked on this, but maybe you're right, and maybe he actually worked on the later album.
I think it was the second album for Ace of Base.
So the Bridge in '95.
Something. Yeah, I think that was it.
So yeah, you're right, because Max Martin is credited as a producer on there.
See, I got to keep you on your toes, man, G. Got to keep you on your toes.
Indeed. I mean, I'm kind of disappointed, but it does make sense, and it takes nothing away from Dennis Pop, who is in his own right quite the hit maker. And I think that a lot of, if you will, the DNA of Dennis Pop's production kind of was transferred to Max Martin's formula to craft pop hits.
Yeah, well, he was his mentor, so it's kind of normal that he learned a lot from him, and Max Martin actually took over for him after Dennis died. I think he was 35 years old.
Yeah, tragic cancer death.
Yeah.
And but my point was about Dennis Pop is the fact that if you look at his productions, they were heavily influenced by groove, by black music, if I can use this term, where you had a lot of break beats, you had a lot of funky bass lines, and so they brought in some more urban-ish elements to pop music that weren't really in fashion in the United States at that time.
So they brought something more groovy to the music.
Because you had the New Jack Swing in the 90s, but it wasn't heard on pop records per se.
Yeah, so they started funkifying a little bit things and just making it more like culturally relevant for the 90s, I think.
Exactly, and I think that's one of the secrets, because if we want to understand his genius, I mean, if you listen to podcasts and interviews and all of that online, everybody's trying to figure out Max Martin's formula to success, and it is kind of a difficult one with Max Martin because he doesn't have that sound, like the Neptunes have that sound. Timbaland has a sound, but when you think of Max Martin, what would you say, BK, is are the staples of a Max Martin song?
For me, when I listen to one of his songs, I find first, like you said, the influences are very diverse. I can hear sometimes melodies from, like I said in the beginning, that he could have been influenced a little bit by Kiss on the more the rock raw and the almost something a little bit more punk that we could like hear in all the other bands that he may have produced, maybe something more Britney-esque or Katy Perry-esque, a little bit, something more raw. You can also hear the melodies, I think, may have come from stuff like ABBA. You're not going to hear it in the song, but the principle, everything is really focused on, for me, the vocal melodies, and also a a very simple, straight to the point approach. Sometimes when you've been working on your art for all these years, you seem to over complexify things, especially artists. If you've been playing guitar for 35 years, playing those two stupid chords may sound kind of rubbish, but I think he always finds a way to produce and to get his artist to go back to basics and to say, just like he said to Pink one time, just breathe and like make it a little bit simpler. Okay, not that complex. So for me, those 2 points: vocal melodies and really really simple, like simple catchy melodies.
Yeah, I mean, of course, he's looked at as a very crafty melody maker, and a lot of musicologists will say that, or will knock on his work because of maybe some of the lyrics don't make sense. I've seen that online. It's become a cliche almost that a lot of the lyrics in his choruses, for example, usually have grammatical errors and stuff like that. And for me, it just shows that at the end of the day, Max Martin didn't really care all that much about lyrics. He really cared about the melody.
Exactly. No, I think he cared a lot about the sound, like the timbre associated with the melody. Sometimes we think more of the words, but sometimes I think the way a word is gonna sound is also very important for the melody. Sometimes it's something that we forget.
Absolutely. And if I could draw a parallel, when I was a graphic designer before, in my previous life, and I was designing logos for companies. And one thing I figured really quickly is when the name of the company is not an interesting word visually speaking, it was very difficult to design a great logo around the name of that company. And I think that in music it's the same, and you hear it more often these days, where there's a lot of gimmicks in the songwriting, like weird metaphors and catchphrases, and the use of slangs that are becoming popular with the youths. But what songwriters who are listening to our podcast right now can gather from his work is the fact that using certain words and certain syllables to, like you said, contour the melody, if you will,
Yeah, exactly.
is really something really interesting in his productions.
Yeah, indeed.
And if I were to talk about a bit more of the musical side, and maybe emphasize on some of the points you made, simplicity is really something that's striking to his productions. You can really tell. You can really tell that the way he builds the tracks, he sees the track with a very global vision. He won't try to put everything in the first 4 bars of the verse or everything in the 8 bars of the chorus. He really lays it out and sprinkles a bit of everything on each of those sections of the track.
He really wants to create contrast between the different sections of the song. That's what I could gather when I listen to his things. Sometimes he's gonna have like really a very low amount of instruments with just, like, let's say for the beginning of a song, with just the vocals and maybe the other instruments hiding out with all the high end cut out with just like maybe like a clap sound or a finger snap or something, and then like raise the bar and have something a little bit more out there for the chorus, or vice versa. Or he really tries to create these high contrasts between the section to be able to, since it's so difficult, like he says, to make things sound simple, you need to find a way to keep people interested when the things are very simple. So you use these different little hook tricks that like either you have something that's gonna sound a little bit louder, either it's gonna sound not as loud, or less instruments or more instruments, to create that contrast between the transition. I think that's his main trick that I noticed listening to his hits. It's something that when you listen to it, it seems very obvious, very simple, but not that many people find a way to use it artistically the way he does.
And I think you have to work on hundreds of songs to get to that level of mastery with simplicity.
Yeah.
Um,
Just
we both struggled with that in the past, where we try to have the beat say everything. Where if you look at his best work, the lyrics and the melody that the singer is singing is really where it's at. The rest is really just a way to support that.
exactly, just to embellish a little bit of what the main idea, the main melody is supposed to show.
So to try to summarize this formula, we have incredible melodies. We have a more musical approach to songwriting, and when I say songwriting, I mean really writing the lyrics. And then we have an extremely synthesized approach to putting the beat together. So, like you said, everything that he'll sprinkle on in the track is used very strategically to build up to that incredible in-your-face chorus that he always seems to have on his biggest hits. And so he'll start with a very simple groove, maybe two chords at the most for the verse, and very quickly he'll have this really simple chord change for the pre-hook, and then he'll have the hook, and then either he doubles that or he has like a post-chorus or something, and it changes all the time. But because the beat is so simple, the track stays very kept together.
It's easy to have things changing a lot and having these little embellishments here and there. When your idea is super basic, it's easy to just go up a notch, and it's not gonna feel full. It's not gonna be like overbearing. It's like he's done that with artists like Adele, where it's usually like her voice and like an acoustic guitar, and it's just fine, and that's the song. So
Yep. And lastly, I'd say, like you said, he's really a musical chameleon, where he can literally pick any of the new genres that come on the scene and that are hot with the youth, and sprinkle that into his compositions in a way that feels natural and that takes pop music to new heights.
yeah, indeed, he's never been afraid to kind of reinvent himself, and to always be able to be up to speed with what was going on. I think it also helps that like maybe at the beginning he would work alone, or he would work with his mentor, but as time moved along, I think he hired more and more people, and he was more into he wanted to be a mentor himself. So I think he hired young aspiring engineers, aspiring songwriters in his studios, and I think that's also a way to keep in touch with what was going on in music today.
Yeah, he absolutely surrounded himself with some of the best in the game, like Dr. Luke,
Exactly.
and great songwriters. And then, and I have this quote that was really interesting in one of his very few interviews, and he said that beat making and trend setting was a young person's game. And I found that interesting because you can absolutely see that mindset in the way he surrounds himself. If you look at songs like, for example, Beauty and the Beat by Justin Bieber and Nicki Minaj, you can absolutely tell that he used Zed's sound to create this little bridge at like the 2-minute mark. And he's done the exact same with Billboard on Britney's Hold It Against Me, where Billboard composed this like dubsteppy bridge. after the second chorus. So that's his way to, you know, kind of wink to these new school producers and say, you know, this is the way you can actually use the DNA of a very cool and complex new genre of electronic music, for example, and just sprinkle it on a pop track.
Yeah, exactly. To use it in a pop setting.
So why don't we go over his catalog a bit, just to give our listeners an idea of just how deep that catalog is?
Good starting place would be, I think, just the number ones can pretty much speak for themselves. I think the top stuff that he did, of course, Britney Spears, "Baby One More Time." That's him. Also, I think he had number one with NSYNC.
He did.
Yeah.
It's gonna be May.
It's gonna be May. Also, one of my favorites, "I Kissed a Girl" by Katy Perry. Love
Yes.
that. Love that arrangement. Went back to his more punk rock roots with Pink. So What?
And Kelly Clarkson also.
Kelly Clarkson also. Yeah, it's interesting with him. I think he. I remember watching American Idol back in the days, like maybe 2010 or something, 2008, 2010, like when it started. And sometimes they would have these features with producers that would start producing things, or the winner would get like their songs produced by this special producer. And now I realize that I think he did a lot of those songs. He was the guy that they would call to do those songs. I think Kelly Clarkson, even what was that country star who won American Idol? Underwood. Carrie Underwood.
Carrie Underwood.
Yeah. I think he produced also her first album or first single or something. So it's strange now that I think about it. We knew Mr. Martin from way before. Of course, all the Katy Perry stuff, the good stuff, was made by him. California Girls, Teenage Dreams. Like you said, Hold It Against Me, Britney. That was also him.
He had a hand on one of our favorites also, Dark Horse.
Yeah, Dark Horse on Prism.
Juicy J.
Yeah, on Prism. Yeah, that's a awesome song. Also producing E.T. with Kanye West, the Katy Perry song.
He had Roar also.
Yeah, Roar also on the, I think it's on Prism too. So
I mean, when you look at it, it's funny how all of the biggest Dr. Luke hits
he was on it. Yeah,
Max Martin hits.
Yeah. Like I think the which one was it? I think the Katy Perry album. I think the first one, Teenage Dream. I think one of those first Katy Perry album, Teenage Dream, was mostly co-produced Dr. Luke, Max Martin, and one of our favorite, Benny Blanco.
Benny Blanco and Circuit.
He was our that young guy who started doing hits.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of good things. Mostly Katy Perry. Also, lots of Taylor Swift. Shake It Off.
I mean,
Blank
the
Space.
ones that I like the most.
The one with Kendrick Lamar, Bad Blood. And I was surprised. I didn't know that. I learned that in the past couple of days. Some of my favorite The Weeknd songs have been produced by him. So
yep.
Yeah, Can't Feel My Face. Yeah, Blinding Light, the most recent stuff. So a pretty interesting pedigree. Also, if we go on a rock side, Maroon 5 also used this service a lot. So, and that's just the number ones. But if we go into just like those other, I think 73s you were talking about earlier, there's so many. You want to take over?
Yeah, of course. I mean, other huge hits. He had a hand in Dynamite by Tayo Cruz.
Yeah.
He did a lot of the earlier stuff by Eli Golding.
Mm-hmm.
Love Me Like You Do.
Yeah, from Delirium Army. Yeah.
Yeah, and then a lot of things that I really like by Demi Lovato.
Yeah, yeah. The
Stuff like
more,
cool for the summer, especially to me, was a huge banger.
yeah, the more mature stuff. Yeah,
Yeah. I was actually in LA when that song came out, and it was all over the radio. And I was like, I need more raw guitars on my R&B pop, because that. And actually, it was almost like Justice-esque, like it was groovy, and then it was up tempo, and then you had the super heavy guitar sound in
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah. Indeed.
He also produced stuff. Obviously, he had this big smash with Justin Timberlake, "Can Stop the Feeling."
Yeah.
I wasn't really all too fond of that song, but I mean,
Yeah.
the numbers speak for themselves, right?
Personally,
So
that was in 2016. For me, the super huge album he did that year was the Ariana Grande album.
yeah,
The Dangerous Woman album. Oof, that was something. Like just Into You. That's some good arrangements and some good producing.
yeah, really, really good.
Yeah.
Two surprises that I got from looking at the catalog were "It's My Life" by Bon Jovi.
Yeah, yeah. I was really surprised by that one. Yeah,
Yeah. Another one that's closer to us, being from Montreal, Quebec, is "That's the Way It Is" by Celine Dion.
oh yeah, he did a lot of stuff for Celine. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
And when I mean, that song particularly, because I personally really don't like Celine's music. I mean, I understand why she's such a big icon, but that was the first one I was like, the beat is kind of cool.
Yeah,
It had that kind of again new jack swingish break beat, and then you have the really clean structure to the song. And when you listen back, it's really obvious actually that it's a Max Martin produced song.
Yeah. When you know what you're looking for, you see it. When you don't know, it just sounds like another pop song. You're like, how come it sounds so good? I don't understand why it sounds so good. How come it's so catchy? But when you know the elements that you're looking for, or you know his past production, you know what to look for. Usually, you can tell that it's him who produced it. But there's so many stuff. Like I think he did stuff for Keisha too, or I think Taylor Swift. I think he had his hands on. I think all her albums have at least a couple songs by him or a collaborator from his studio. Or it's honestly, it's super impressive that someone could stay relevant for so long and still have that magic, sprinkle that magic. Just recently, if we like what he's done recently, just the last album by The Weeknd, it's awesome. After Hours, it's for me, it's awesome.
And for people who are younger out there listening to the show, you kind of had to be there in the 90s when he came on the scene with Britney and the Backstreet Boys, because at that time, I don't think that artists could get as popular as these acts became. Like you had seen the New Kids on the Block and you thought they were the new Beatles, but when the Backstreet Boys had their string of hits, it was just like 4 times bigger. And to go from there and stay, like you say, like you said, relevant for 30 years is kind of hard to understand how he made it happen. And I guess one of my at least hypothesis is that because he stayed behind the scenes and just focused on his craft, he didn't get caught up in the fame game, and he really just kept his energy and creativity for where it counted, which is the music and the songs, really.
Yeah, but I think that basically from when he started working with all the big bands and all these acts, most of it, I think he stayed in Sweden for like a super long time. People would come to him in his studio and like he would write for them in Sweden. I think it
Yeah.
wasn't until I think 2004 or 2005 that he came to New York and he started like a kind of a second phase of his career. So maybe that's why he was able to keep it on an equal footing and not get caught up in all the hype, like you said.
Yeah, and that's another thing. I mean, he also has all of the biggest hits, like in Europe, especially in the UK with Adele, Eli Golding,
Yeah.
and Jessie J.
Mm.
And he actually helped them kind of cross the ocean and become
Exactly.
popular in the States.
Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
Ellie Goulding already she had that special something. I don't think he produced her first album. I think Delirium is her second, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but like he found a way to take all these artists to like the second level. And I think that's what's so great about him. He knows how to pick those juicy little elements that you can use just to make a hit. Because sometimes, like I said at the beginning, when you're so focused on your singing, what you've practiced for all those years, your playing, what you've been practicing for all those years, you kind of lose perspective into what's good, what's not, what's too intricate, what's too simple, what's not simple enough. And I think a producer like Max Martin finds a way to get that out of you and to say, okay, that's fine. Let's pick these two elements. That's what we're going to use to make your song. We don't need those 10, 15 things that show me that you can play guitar,
Yeah. Hey, I keep saying Eli Golding, but it's Ellie Golding, right?
Ellie Goulding.
How do you Ellie
Goulding, yeah.
My bad, Ellie. Mother's tongue is French over here. So, but yeah, to your point, I mean, he was telling this story or recounting the story of how "Baby One More Time" came about with Britney Spears, and that song had been written, I think, like 4 years prior, and he had pitched it to all of the major labels, all of the bigger artists of that time. And once he got Britney to actually perform it, because you have to understand that all of his songs he will sing the demo for, because he, like you said, he was a lead singer in a glam rock band for several years, and so he's a great singer. Apparently, I've never heard his voice, but and so when Britney sung it, she kind of brought something new with her performance to the song. And so this goes out to show that he has this knack of understanding when something special happens. And he said to Britney, it is your song, you made it yours. And I think that the stronger songs, especially when they're written by like an army, like the Dr. Luke and Max Martin produced songs, is to make you feel like this song was written for no other than
the artist.
XYZ artist. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, that's true.
And when you look back at it, like nobody else could have sung it better than 15-year-old Britney. Like it would be awkward for anybody else to sing it.
Yeah, she brought that southern twang.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I never saw it that way, but it is.
Yeah, from
one of the things that
Louisiana. Yeah,
and also, like you said, he's really great at in a very different way from Rick Rubin, who we covered a few weeks back. But he's great at sitting down with artists, listening to music, and really understanding their story, and then picking the songs or writing the songs that will feel unique to those artists. Yep. So as we always do, what's like your top three?
Top three songs
of Max Martin produced hits.
Top three songs for me. it's very difficult once again because we choose such talented producers that sometimes I think we should probably have like a top 10 rather than like a favorite or top 3. But if I have to choose,
Hey, if you want to go top 10, go top 10. Be my
no,
guest.
no. I'm gonna do okay. I'm gonna give you 4 of my favorites. 4 of my favorites.
Let's go. Let's do it.
They're all pretty different. Of course, for my favorite, I'm gonna go with probably, like you said earlier, Dark Horse by Katy Perry. That was something I thought it was a perfect mix of pop mixed with the new urban style, with that 808, with that kind of dangerous feel. And Katy Perry is she's such a good actress in her own music. Like she plays characters in her music, and I admire that.
And then you have the synth that goes meow 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 meow.
Exactly. That's awesome. So that would be my number 1.
Your godson put me on to that. My son Oscar, for folks out there, he was like, "Why is this thing going on in the background all the time? Meow 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 meow." And I was like, "It's not saying that, Oski. It's just a synthesizer." Go ahead. Sorry.
And then the last one from The Weeknd, Blinding Lights. I thought it was such a perfect way to bring back the 80s in 2020. I don't know. It's something that I heard it and right away I liked it. So I think it must have been something super catchy. Also, we talked about Ellie Goulding, Army. Very well arranged, very like pop produced song. Super, super cool. And my last one, to all the Taylor Swift fan, I think Blank Space is so well produced. The synthesizer parts, the way they gel with the song, it's amazing. So those are my top 4.
Yeah, that one actually made me mad when I first heard it because I was like, the beat is way too simple. How can that be a hit? Like what
It's
what gives?
the griminess of the synths. It's incredible. When it comes in, you're like, oh, who makes this? Who produced that? Like, it's so simple that you're like, I love it.
And the little like trap aesthetics with the drums.
Yeah, exactly. So urban, like 2020 conscious. Well, it's not 2020, it's 2014, but like it's so very, very diverse selection, I think. And that proves his genius, how he's able to craft these diverse genres into one under the same like pop umbrella. It's incredible.
His all-around game is something special for sure.
What about you? What are some of your favorite songs?
Well, me, my candy pop love.
Okay.
And number 1, I'll have to go with California Girls.
Oh yes,
like Katy Perry.
Yeah,
with the bass pops and the little quirky synthesizers, and obviously you got Big Snoop Dogg.
Yeah.
Doing a very, very generic verse.
Yeah.
Nothing else you would expect from Snoop on a Katy Perry track.
Yeah, but it works. It works.
And then my one of my karaoke go-tos would certainly be "I Want It That Way" by the Backstreet Boys. Yep.
I think that was one of his first top 10s, right?
It certainly had to be because it was a huge smash.
Yeah, it was one of the first smash that he put these guys on the map with that song.
Exactly. And I remember actually being mad because I was a huge New Kids on the Block fan, and when I saw how the Backstreet Boys were taking over the boy band world like that, I was like, man, they're not like, they were picked out. They were not. It's not a real band. They were put together in a laboratory. Everything is perfect, and that's how I felt at the time.
Yeah.
Hey, don't judge me. I was like 16 back then. So, and then I did mention "Cool for the Summer" by Demi Lovato,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
I think is really, really cool. And I'll end my top 4 with the Beeb
The Babe and
and
Nicki Minaj.
the song that actually made me a believer.
Oh,
Believe it or not. Yeah, I mean, I was even if I'm Canadian, I had no love for Justin Bieber at that time. I thought he was corny. But then he came out with that Zed co-produced song with Nicki Minaj, as you said, and I thought that it was just like the perfect EDM hit. You know, at a point in time where EDM was becoming huge. And prior to that one, you know, Dr. Luke and Max Martin had done, you know, like 128 BPM, like pretty much house and EDM tracks, but that one was really like genuine. But even then, he found a way to throw in some like live-ish sounding bass lines in there and other things to make it even bigger than what EDM was at that time,
yeah.
I thought.
Yeah, just using the right elements from the current sounding EDM and just like putting it on another level.
Yeah, because you got like the weird kind of cut up live bass, and then in the pre-hook you got those guitars, and I thought that was like perfect pop production right there. Yeah. So I'd like to close out this episode with 3 secrets that I'd like to share with our audience, BK. 3 secrets that seem to be kind of the formula to a Max Martin hit. And you let me know if you agree. But so, as we've said, secret number 1 is, and I quote, "It's very important to have a great melody. If you have one, build your song around that. Don't make it too complicated." So that really sums up what we've talked about on how he uses the voice to be the carrier of this great melody, and then having the beat just enhance the ideas, the story of the song through the verse, pre-chorus, and chorus structure that he always has on his hits. And then secret number 2 is the way, as we said, how he treats songwriting as music, not as, you know, like writing an essay. He's not trying to have perfect grammar or, you know, a great example of that is "Hit Me Baby One More Time." You know, he didn't really care if it could be misconstrued as glorifying, domestic violence. But just the way that it keeps on coming back in the song, you don't even think about what she's saying. It's just very musical and catchy, right?
The words suit the notes perfectly.
Exactly.
Yeah, the tone of the words.
Sorry.
No problem. Go ahead.
And then secret number 3 is teamwork. Surrounding yourself with talented individuals and understanding how each and every one of these assets can play a crucial role in the team chemistry in order to produce the best hit.
True. I totally agree with those 3 little bits of advice. I think if everyone would follow that, I think we would have even more awesome music in this world. I think I'd like to add maybe a last one. Aside from having a great melody, I would also tell people, try to find a unique sound, a transcending sound, like a timbre for that melody. Don't just use like anything or just a normal guitar. Try testing where and with which instrument does that melody make the most sense with the voice that you're trying to mesh it with. I think that would be one last piece of advice. Not just to settle if you're a like guitar voice, just maybe try a piano, maybe try it with the bass, maybe try it with another instrument, and to see which one makes the most impact, which one makes you feel those goosebumps.
I absolutely agree. I think his work shows his knack for for pinpointing what the catchy sound needs to be in each of the sections of the track.
Yeah.
And to close out this wonderful episode, I mean, again, it's always the same thing, right? We could go on and on with this guy because his body of work is just so colossal. I was listening to this podcast by, I think it's Switched on Pop or something. It's a big podcast. I had seen it in the past, but...
That's a good podcast.
And yeah, it's a great podcast.
Aside from ours, you should check out Switched on Pop.
Yeah, I mean, they're a great number 2.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're number 1 in the musical analysis of things. But one of their guests brought up a very interesting point because a lot of people are kind of clueless when they're told that, you know, Max Martin is the biggest hitmaker in modern history. You know, like we said, 73 top 10 Billboard hit singles. You know, something we haven't mentioned is 5 Grammy Awards out of 22 nominations. And still, nobody knows what the guy sounds like or looks like. Unless you've Googled his name, you have never seen the guy, which is quite unique also. And the guy was reflecting on why that was. And so he's Swedish, but there is this Scandinavian and actually Norwegian concept. It's kind of a cultural thing that is understood, and it kind of blends in the cultural fabric of these people. And it's the fact that a group should be celebrated always before the individual. And I thought that was really, really poetic and interesting because he kind of lives by that maxim, the way he lets his work speak for itself. And he does not need to be in front of cameras with, you know, shades on all the time.
Yeah, or to brag about his own work. He just lets people listen to his hits.
Exactly. And once you realize just how many of those he had a hand on or a hand in, it's just astounding. So kudos to him for not forgetting what's really important.
Yeah.
And that's the craft.
Yeah. That's kudos to staying a studio rat for all these years.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, that's our journey, right?
Yeah, that's our journey. Working in that basement in front of those speakers.
Right. So I'm that's all I have for today. Take it away, BK.
All right, guys. So thanks for following us. And we're going to say, have a great week. Don't forget to make that funky music. So see you guys next week.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to the podcast, guys. Remember to subscribe if you like what you hear. We're on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube. Also, if you want to support us, head on to delicatebeats.com. You can find our serum packs, our contact instruments, and also plenty of freebies if you subscribe to the newsletter. Don't forget to follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and once again, keep making that awesome music.